So moving on to chapter 27, this one Skye says, if Jesus was serious, then we will value God's words more than our traditions. Verse 43 starts with, you have heard that it was said. There are a few different instances in the Bible that start this way, and Jesus often uses this phrase when he's teaching. He's referring here to traditions that the Jews had that were based off of Old Testament teachings. The problem is that these teachings were interpreted differently. In some cases, the words were even twisted to assume something that God wasn't actually meaning when he said them. So, for example, in Deuteronomy, God said, and God commanded people to love their neighbor. But from that, the Jews took that and they twisted it, and they looked for the bare minimum, and they said, okay, I can love my neighbor, but anybody that isn't my neighbor, that means that I can hate them. And then the law came in, and that's where the eye for the eye and the tooth for the tooth verse comes in. And in a couple weeks on our podcast, Pastor Ron and Pastor Jason are going to go into this in a bit more detail. So I'm going to gloss over it a little bit now, but we'll come back to it in a week or so. But what they meant when they inferred to love your neighbor, and then they used that with their laws and their culture to make excuses for people that they didn't have to love. So God's command to love was turned into an excuse to hate. Scott McKnight, in his commentary on the Sermon on the Mount, says that very often what gets Christians into trouble is not holding to God's commands, but stridently holding to the assumption we've inferred from God's commands. We've seen this happen a few times in the Bible, such as when Jesus heals the man with the deformed hand on the Sabbath. So this story is found in Mark 3, and it shows Jesus showing love, showing kindness. But the Pharisees around don't see that love and they see that kindness. All they see is the assumption that they made about the law. And they're considering this miraculous healing work, which according to their laws is breaking the rule about working on the Sabbath. So we've mentioned this a few times before when we did our walk through the Gospels, but I'll do a quick recap. So the Jews had about 613 laws that they must follow at all times. But some of these laws were found in Scripture, but then they would add on to it. So Jesus would give a simple asking, or God would give a simple asking you to rest on the Sabbath. They would then take that and say, okay, what isn't resting? What's considered work? And then they take it a step further and say, okay, what could lead you to do some work? And suddenly there was this whole list of rules for one simple commandment of resting on the Sabbath. So these laws then turned into their own Jewish tradition, and it didn't always match up with the intent behind God's original law. So when Jesus came, he boiled down all these 613 laws and more that they had come up with down to two. Love God and love others, whether they're your neighbor or not. Jesus wasn't against the law, but he was against what the law had become. It's easy for us to look back and see how they strayed away from God's original intent. But it's not so easy for us to see it today. But we're just as guilty. What are some of the traditions that we follow, assuming that they're Jesus' commands, when really we've taken it into our own hands, or we've come up with excuses to do the bare minimum? We can look back and see that there were many Christians who believed that the earth was the center of the universe and believed that the earth was flat based off of Psalms and things in the Bible. We took things in the Psalms that were literary devices and took them literally and assumed what Jesus and God was saying. Skye shares the example of how we take Jesus' command to go and make disciples into devaluing other tasks that Jesus has asked us to do, that is the only important thing that we can do as a Christian, when really there are other things that God has asked us to do that are equally as important. One thing that I personally experienced growing up in the church is the emphasis on marriage. I would often get quoted at saying, it's not good for man to be alone. But then that got twisted, and it turned into saying that if you decided to stay single, you weren't good enough. Older singles were constantly invited to these small groups that were told that they're a Bible study and a group for you to get to know people around your age. But you'd show up, and it was this awkward Bible study speed dating thing where they'd try and match you up with somebody. We can love our married neighbors, but we can also love our single neighbors the way that God intended us to. We don't have to make them our enemies. Scott McKnight, again, says, we do the same thing today. Many of us love our neighbors in such a way that it is at the same time a powerful damnation of others. And we do this damnation in the socially acceptable form of exclusion, denunciation. So here we go, and I would urge you to spend some time pondering alone right now, asking yourself the honest question, who your enemy is. In turning God's commands into our own set of laws, into our own set of do's and don'ts, we often create enemies out of our neighbors.